Now, I don't do this to impress you. I do this more to express to you what's possible. Because like this exercise that we did when we turned like this, let me give you an example. What did Roger Bannister do in 1954? The 4-minute mile. Throughout human history, nobody could run a mile in less than 4 minutes. Why? They didn't believe that they could. In fact, what was the belief back then? It was impossible. You would die. Your heart would, the human heart was not capable of running a sub 4-minute mile. It would explode in your chest. Now that was the belief. Would that keep you from running a 4-minute mile? Like I'm a runner, that would keep me from running, period, right? And so it's interesting, how he actually was able to do it is he actually visualized himself crossing the finish line and seeing it says 3:59. Because he knows what you know as superheroes, and he's doing these thought experiments, that success is an inside-out game, right? That in order to take the invisible and make it visible, just like a thermostat, right? You visualize things here, and then you make it out here. He knew it had to happen here first, because all behavior is belief-driven. Now, that wasn't the interesting thing to me. Just like when you did the turning exercise, that's what he did, the equivalent. The interesting thing is what happened in the next couple years. Nobody could do it for thousands of years. One person does it. What happens? Yeah, dozens of people started breaking the 4-minute mile. Now, in that year, was there big advancements in shoe technology and nutrition and training methodology? No. Where was the change? A change in belief. Like I remember when I was a child, I was at a restaurant and we had a waiter go around and take everybody's order, 20 people, busy night. Halfway through, he was taking my order. I noticed something funny, he wasn't writing it down. Have you ever had a waiter or waitress like that? And I was like, there's just no way. I was very skeptical. We're gonna send stuff back, this is gonna be a disaster. Well, when he came back, he got every single thing perfect. The salad dressings, the beverages, how he wanted the meal cooked, the desserts, everything perfect. Now, is that a standout skill or is that a standout skill? Yes or yes? Yes, he was like my Roger Bannister. He did something I never thought was possible and opened up possibility inside my mind. Perceived limits, right? You don't know how far you could turn, just like what we talked about, what Vishen was talking about. And just like with this, I do this demonstration not to impress you, to express upon you what's really possible. I grew up with learning challenges, with difficulties. How about this? How many people want to see me memorize this backwards, recall it backwards? Yeah? That's how much energy I'm getting here? Let me try to get most of this list backwards, all right? No, I'm just kidding. Actually, let me try this. 2, 4, are we good? I want to make sure we're in the right thing. 3, 1, 6, 0, 2, 4. Is that good? 9, 3, 7, 7, 3, 1, 3, 2, 6, 6, 1, 1. 9, 9, 1, 2. How are we doing? 5, 3, 4, 5, 8, 8. So what if you could get in these kind of states and have strategies to be able to do the things that you need? How much more productive could you be as a coach, as an expert, as a speaker, as an entrepreneur, as a parent, as a student by having these kind of strategies? What really upset me is when I struggled my whole life with my whole childhood life until I was 18 where I hit a wall. I literally, when I became a freshman in college, I was lucky to get into, I was like, I want to make a fresh start. And I was like, I want to show my family, I want to make them proud. I want to show the world, myself, that I was good enough and smart, that I could really do this. So I worked really hard, and I did worse. And I was ready to quit school, and I was living in the library. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't doing anything that was good for me, nothing in wild fit, all the things I should be doing to build my superhero strength. I ended up passing out in the library late night, and I fell down a flight of stairs. I hit my head again. And I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. And at this point, I weighed about 117 pounds. I was wasted away. Like I thought I died. Maybe part of me wished that I had. And also, when I got out, I was like, there has to be something better for me here. Like, what do I do? And a nurse came in at that exact moment and brought a mug of tea. And on the tea was a picture of a genius, a true genius, the opposite of what I felt I was at the time. It was Albert Einstein. And it said this quote that you've all heard in some iteration: the same level of thinking that's created the problem won't solve the problem. The The same level of thinking that's created the problem won't solve the problem. I was thinking, what's my problem? I'm a really slow learner. How do I think differently? Maybe I can learn how to learn, right? And I was just like, I picked up a course bulletin to look at classes, and they're all classes at school on what to learn. Math, history, science, Spanish, right? All important subjects, but what to learn. How many classes were on how to learn? No classes. I mean, classes on, where's your class on creativity and problem solving and thinking, right? Where's your classes on reading faster and having better focus and concentration or improving your memory? I always thought it should have been the fourth R in school. They teach you 3 R's, reading, writing, and what? Arithmetic. What about remembering? What about recall? What about retention? And because Socrates says there is no learning without remembering. There is no learning without remembering. So B is believe. Believe you can, believe you can. Now the E, I'm going to go through these really fast, is exercise. Exercise. And what I mean by this is I mean physical exercise. Because your brain, the primary function of your brain is to control your movement. As your body moves, your brain grooves. Stand up real quick. Stand up. Quick, quick, quick. Watch this. I want you to do this. I want you to take your right elbow and just put it to your left ear. Left what? Knee. Good. And then your left elbow to your right knee and vice versa. Or if you can't reach that far, just tap. These are cross laterals, right? I want you to do this. Take your left hand and just massage your right earlobe. And then your right hand and massage your left earlobe. And squat down. Inhale. Exhale, come up. Go down. Inhale. Exhale, come up. One more time. Inhale. Exhale, come up. Shake out your body. All right, have a seat. They call that super brain yoga, right? How many people are familiar with educational kinesiology, brain gym, super brain yoga? So as your body moves, your brain grooves, that's exercise. So if you want to change your state, exercise and movement is key. I'm going to go through the rest really fast. The F-A-S-T. If you want to learn any subject or skill faster, the F is to forget. Forget. And what do I mean by that? A lot of people don't learn faster because they feel like they know it already. Going back to chronological age, but it's not chronological age, it's really the age of your mind and your heart. A lot of people don't learn because they haven't emptied their cup. Does that make sense? That you hear all these cliches, but there's truth in every cliche, that your mind is like a parachute, it only works when it's what? It's open. So this is the beginner's mind, right? So you want to forget about anything else than what you're learning here, temporarily. The A in fast, so that's the curiosity state, right? The A in fast stands for active, active. And the reason why I have you get up and shout out and do all these things is not for me. Trust me, I know the answers to most of the questions and everything, is the active part is learning is not a spectator sport. Learning is not a spectator sport. The human brain and the mind doesn't learn consuming information, it learns through creating it. Your mind doesn't learn based on consumption, it learns through creation or co-creation in this state. Does that make sense? So you have to be active. You take notes, you ask questions, you participate in it. How many people believe what you put in is what you get out? Right? So you're active. The S in fast stands for state. So this is emphasizing the state. That all learning is state dependent. All learning is state dependent. I never want to learn in a bored state. Right? Most people, like when they read, they're in a bored state. How many people, you read a page in a book, get to the end, and just forget what you just read? And you go back and you reread it, and you still don't know what you just read because you're in that bored state. How many people use reading as a sedative? Like you have this token book that's been inside of your bed for an embarrassingly long period of time, but if your state that you have associated to this activity called reading is falling asleep or a zero, anything times zero is what? Is zero, and people wonder why they don't remember what they read. So control your state. Finally, the T in fast and B fast stands for teach. Teach. I recommend that throughout this entire gathering and beyond, you learn with the intention of teaching it to somebody else. Does that make sense? If you had to teach this to somebody when you got back home, your team, your family, your friends, would you learn it differently? Yes or yes? Would your focus be better? Yes or yes? Would you ask better questions? Would you take better notes? Right? So you learn with the intention of teaching to somebody else. All right? So the B stands for what? Let's do this fast. B fast. B stands for believe. Believe you can, believe you can, you're right. The E stands for what? Exercise. As your body moves, your brain grooves. The F stands for what? Forget, beginner's mind. Your mind's like a parachute, only works when it's open. The A stands for what? Active, because learning is not a spectator sport. The S stands for what? State. All learning is state dependent. And finally, the T is what? Teach, because when you teach something, you get to learn it twice. Let me close with this. This is how I used this once. And so I think children, going back to childhood, you're the fastest learners, right? And you could access that at any time, because you have an inner what? Child. You do have an inner child. How many people believe they have an inner child? A child inside there that is a genius, that can learn, that maybe needs to hear some words from you every so often, right? And so a few years ago, and I'll close with this. A few years ago, because I remembered someone's name, it led to business that, how many people believe remembering names is important? Because if you forget someone's name, what's the communication you're sending them? That they're not what? Important. How are you going to show somebody you care for their business, their future, their finances, their health, if you don't care and just remember them, right? And so I remember someone's name. It led to this business for 20th Century Fox, and it was for the chairman, and I was training him and his executive team on a Friday. And I go there, and because I was in state, because I saw all this Avatar like memorabilia, and I saw this movie poster with Star Wars, I was like a kid, right? So I gave my best training ever. And afterwards, they really felt it. He was like, gave me a tour of the whole place and everything, and I saw this movie poster of Wolverine. This for me is a big deal. A Wolverine coming out, and I was like, wow, I can't wait for that film to come out. And the chairman picks up the phone, and 5 minutes later, I'm in the Fox studios with 3D glasses watching Hugh Jackman fight all these super ninjas, right? And I'm in my bliss on a Friday. Afterwards, he comes to me and says, Jim, how was the movie? I was like, it's great, thank you so much. I tell him my story, how I grew up with learning disabilities. I taught myself how to read by reading comic books. My favorite comic book were the X-Men, Wolverine and the X-Men. And not because they were strongest, it's because they didn't fit in. Because I felt like I didn't fit in growing up as a kid. Does that make sense? With this disability and the boy with the broken brain. And the highlight of the comic books for me was when I read that the school for the gifted, for the superheroes, for the X-Men, was in Westchester, New York, and it's a suburb of New York City, and that's where I grew up. So when I was 9 years old, I used to ride my bicycle all around the neighborhood trying to find this school. Because I wanted to run away. I wanted to find my superpower, something that I was good at, and I want to find my super friends. Because when you're the boy with the broken brain, you don't connect with a lot of people because you don't feel like you have a lot to offer, right? So I used to do that. I'm telling him this story, the chairman, and he's like, Jim, I know you like superheroes. Do you want to go to Comic-Con? Now, how many people are familiar with Comic-Con, right? Tens of thousands of people getting together in San Diego, dress up like superheroes. I was like, when is it? He's like, today, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now notice my mind. I go from a 9-year-old to a 99-year-old. Because I'm like, I'm in LA, how am I going to get to San Diego on a Friday, right? There's going to be lines, there'll be traffic, I have nothing to wear, I have all these meetings in LA. And notice like the critic that comes in, right? Because sometimes we have to get out of our own way. And mentally, I just became an old person in my mind. And then I was like, and he's like, Jim, do you want to go? I'm going tomorrow. And he was like, I was like, oh, you're going tomorrow, I want to go with you. So he picks me up Saturday morning, and instead of driving down there, we get on his plane, and I swear to you, on that plane's the entire cast of X-Men. And they're going to surprise Comic-Con, right? With their presence for the new movie that's coming out. And I spend the entire, I go on there and I see Wolverine and Patrick's, Professor X. I'm sitting between Jennifer Lawrence and Halle Berry going to Comic-Con, right? And we spend the entire day amazing. We come back, here's the lesson. We come back, and Chairman was like, how was it? I was like, the best day ever, thank you so much. He's like, Jim, I have something else for you. I don't want anything else, what can I do for you? He was like, they really loved you. How would you like to go to Montreal? They were filming the last 30 days of the new movie. And I'm like, oh, wow, I've never been on film set. I would love to do that, but what can I do for you? And he says, Jim, just do what you did with us. Just teach them how to speed read scripts, memorize their lines faster, be present and focus on set. And I was like, oh, I could totally do that. Sunday morning, we're on what they call the X-Jet, and we're going to Montreal. And I'm brain training these amazing individuals that inspired me growing up, right? And I got to see, on set, it was actually taking place at the school. And I got to see my real-life heroes come to life in front of me as a 9-year-old boy. Now, when I got home, there was a package waiting for me. I opened up. I don't know if you could put the slide on, please. I opened it up, and there's this photograph on the screen. There's a photograph of me and the entire cast of X-Men. And even better than Halle Berry and Jennifer Lawrence, everything that's on there, was the note from the chairman. It said this, Jim, thank you so much for sharing your superpowers with all of us. I know you've been looking for your superhero school since you were a kid. Here's your class photo. The lesson that everyone gets different lessons out of this. For me, is me being in that childhood vulnerable state that allowed something like that to happen. And what I would leave for you is this homework. Is it okay if I give you some homework? This movie was called Days of Future Past. It takes place in the future, and there's Armageddon. I mean, it's the most dreaded future you could ever imagine. And Professor X sends Wolverine, because Wolverine has healing abilities with his mind, sends him back in time as like the communicator to talk to his younger self. So Professor X sends Wolverine back in time to talk to the younger version of Professor X to tell him something so that way the future gets changed. Does that make sense? So my question for you is this. If you could go back to that child inside of you, that younger self, and right now tell them something that they need to hear, what would that be? If you could go back and pass on a message to your younger self, what would it be? And if you were to go in the future, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years ahead in the future, I believe you have wisdom inside of you. I believe you have greatness inside of you and genius that you're not even tapped in those states. If you were to project 10 years ahead of time and look back on this day right now, what does your current self need to hear from your future self? I have a quote that I get quoted on more than anything else. It talks about an egg and stress, that your egg is like your life, that if an egg is broken by an outside force, life ends. But if it's broken by an inside force, life begins. And all great things begin on the inside. Thank you very much.